Hi, I am Hamza Iqbal and welcome back to my YouTube channel with a new scary story. So, let's start the story without wasting time. A scary night in the jungle alone. The jungle was an unforgiving place, alive with 1,000 hidden eyes and a symphony of unsettling sounds. Rahul knew this well, but his adventurous spirit had brought him here alone. As a seasoned hiker, he had tackled many terrains before, but the dense, mysterious jungle on the outskirts of Keladar village was a different beast entirely. It began as a solo adventure challenge he had set for himself. Rahul wanted to document the untouched beauty of the jungle for his nature vlog. Villagers had warned him against venturing into the forest alone. They spoke of cursed trees, ancient spirits, and a malevolent presence that roamed the jungle after dark. Rahul laughed it off as superstition. With his backpack, camera gear, and enough supplies for a night, he set off into the green abyss. The first few hours were magical. The jungle was vibrant with life, exotic birds, rustling leaves, and a kaleidoscope of colors. Rahul captured it all with his camera, his excitement drowning out the unease that occasionally surfaced when shadows moved too quickly in his peripheral vision. As the sun dipped lower, the atmosphere began to shift. The cheerful chirping of birds gave way to an eerie silence. The air grew colder, and the dense canopy above turned the jungle into a dark maze. Rahul realized he had underestimated the forest size. His map, already outdated, was proving useless. Determined to stay calm, Rahul set up a small campsite near a clearing. The fire he managed to light offered a small circle of comfort against the oppressive darkness. He prepared a quick meal, all the while feeling as though he was being watched. Then came the first sound, a soft rustle just beyond the reach of his firelight. He paused, his spoon halfway to his mouth, straining to hear. The rustling grew louder, moving closer. Rahul grabbed his flashlight and shone it toward the noise. Nothing. He chuckled nervously, convincing himself it was just a harmless animal. But the jungle seemed to disagree. The rustling was replaced by a faint whispering sound, soft, unintelligible, yet distinctly human. As the hours dragged on, the jungle grew colder and more hostile. Rahul tried to distract himself by reviewing his footage, but the battery of his camera died abruptly, though it had been fully charged earlier. The fire, too, began to falter as if some unseen force was smothering it. Rahul added more wood, but the flames refused to grow. Panic set in when the fire went out completely, plunging him into darkness. He fumbled for his flashlight, but when he switched it on, the beam flickered weakly before dying altogether. Then came the sound of footsteps. Something watched as they were deliberate, slow, and heavy, circling just beyond the clearing. Rahul froze, his breath caught in his throat. "Hello," he called out, his voice trembling. A tense silence followed, broken only by the pounding of his heart. He reached for his phone, but it had no signal and the battery was draining inexplicably fast. The footsteps resumed, this time moving closer. In the dim light of the moon, Rahul saw it, a shadowy figure, tall and indistinct, standing at the edge of the clearing. Its eyes, two faintly glowing orbs, locked onto him. Rahul grabbed his bag and ran. The jungle, now an endless labyrinth of trees and undergrowth, seemed to close in around him. He tripped and stumbled, branches clawing at his clothes and skin. Behind him, the footsteps quickened. He dared to glance back and saw the shadow moving with unnatural speed, gliding between the trees as though it were part of them. Panic surged through him, and he pushed himself harder, ignoring the pain in his legs and the branches that scratched his face. Just as he thought he couldn't run any longer, Rahul burst into a small clearing. At its center stood a decrepit shrine, overgrown with moss and vines. It looked ancient, with strange carvings etched into its stone surface. Desperate, he ran to the shrine, hoping it might offer some protection. The air around it felt different, heavier, yet strangely calm. The footsteps stopped abruptly at the edge of the clearing. Rahul turned to see the shadowy figure standing just outside the shrine's perimeter. It seemed unable or unwilling to cross. For the first time, Rahul noticed something strange about the carvings. They depicted scenes of people bowing to a towering figure, much like the one now watching him. As Rahul leaned against the shrine, trying to catch his breath, he heard the whispers again. This time, they were louder, coming from all directions. He looked around, but saw nothing. The voices spoke in an ancient tongue, incomprehensible yet filled with urgency. Suddenly, the shadowy figure began to retreat, dissolving into the jungle like smoke. Rahul's relief was short-lived. The ground beneath him began to tremble, and the whispers grew into a deafening chorus. From the shrine emerged a faint light, illuminating a hidden passage leading underground. Against his better judgment, Rahul felt compelled to enter. The passage led to a cavernous chamber deep beneath the jungle. The walls were covered in the same strange carvings, glowing faintly in the darkness. At the center of the chamber stood an altar, upon which lay an artifact that seemed to pulse with life. As Rahul approached, the whispers returned, but this time they were inside his head. He realized the voices were pleading with him to leave the artifact untouched, but curiosity got the better of him. As he reached out to touch it, the chamber shook violently. The shadowy figure reappeared, this time fully formed a monstrous entity with elongated limbs and a face that seemed to shift and change. Rahul grabbed the artifact and ran, the entity close behind. The jungle above seemed to react to his presence, the trees bending and twisting as if trying to trap him. Finally, he saw the faint glow of dawn on the horizon. As he stumbled into the village, the artifact in his hand, the jungle fell silent. The villagers gasped when they saw him, their faces pale with fear. One elder stepped forward, pointing to the artifact. "You've brought it back," she said in a trembling voice. "The curse will begin again." Rahul never uploaded his footage. He left the village that day, but the artifact stayed with him, no matter how many times he tried to get rid of it. The shadowy figure followed him, appearing in mirrors, windows, and dreams. And Rahul realized too late that some places, and some secrets, should remain untouched.